Left it here.
Thank you, sir.
What if I just give the speaker 2 times?
Don't do that. Watch me. Don't tell him what to do.
Yeah, you can't tell me what. Ben, you good?
Yeah.
You too? Alright. My process of being us ended, my process of becoming a starter. Contention on this expedition, creating immigration has been kept a secret in New Mexico. Billy Yaley Benalis tells us her story of how they work and were slaves on the Hennepin plantation. That's the Billy 2007, which is part of Mexican history, which hasn't kept a secret. Hundreds of Koreans are sports life in Constitution. They would never imagine the sacrifices that would be forced to make. Yaley Benalis grabbed himself a physical death. It was hard to he talked to grandma's living and some in foreign country. Those who refuse to work or be once your last name, they will see there is no other life until we have to see. Now these slaves represent the myth of the mind that eating a Korean immigrants were recognized as back working by exploding tree like Bruce do that day. And that's why one day their homeland rich comes out. A month before they're Korean. Now one was the people not to really home country ever again. The first Korean immigrants landed in the Korean captured Japanese slave ships got came to Tulsa to take from the old Koreans working on the plantation. Their slave captures back over the fact that daily lives wasn't those rude to deal with earn the reputation backward. So much to do in the end game, but the myth is alive. And while in current society, Asian Americans vindicate the American dream. They're the living proof of the power of free market and absent racial discrimination. But this is problematic for some Asian groups. The plight of the Southeast Asian refugees lost in Africa. Southeast Asia lumped into the broader category Asian as their popular 2000. The model by Northern considered because political conservative so much has Asian American becomes dominant right. The myth works tells if Asian story about society, the flip side is also feeling right because Asian Americans from their strong families that dedicated to education work. Conservatives say that the poverty of Latinos, African Americans being explained by their own values. The myth racial law took hold of that sense point in this history after the immigration reforms that year was selecting a large number of educated immigrants into the United States. Highly skilled Southeast Asian nurses, doctors, and engineers getting important justice, racial tension were favored. Articles coming at time when it's being grown 100 being available. Although I know it's a nation 300,000 Chinese Americans moving ahead on there with no help from anyone else. Newsweek has Asian Americans outlining the whites in 1986, dubbing them as a super minority. Asian Americans are living proof of the power of the free market and the aspirational discrimination. A closer look paints another picture. What most Iraqis can say goes about half the population Asian Americans made up of high educated immigrants. A flight from refugees in Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam is lost in the average. Just some devastating lives in the United States. Poverty rates of South Asian Americans much higher than those of even non-minority. Yet despite explaining accuracy, correct, lumping populace there, the federal government still groups South Asian refugees under the overall category for research and funding purposes. We labor under the shadow of monuments or so on so heal, even those of civil needs. But the myth of this violence is silent. The right comes up with the deception to uphold the modern myth. That's the Pragmatism 2002. The model of the majority of refugees South Asian held from rural areas. The psychological cause of the keeper from the longer years called the refugee camps are killing me. Refugees and other themselves trapped in poverty, providing low-cost labor and preserving no health other benefits. The picture that emerges is strongly similar to the polar members of the non-minority South Asian Latinos African Americans have a significant number of single-parent families. A quarter Cambodian households are headed by a single woman for the sake of preserving the non-minority. Considered possibly largely ignore the needs of South Asian Americans, but the myth is false. Koreans are seen as a non-minority, but they're also the forever foreigner. This ideology being a middle class psychological violence came in 2008. Although Korean Americans rely ethnic now with the benefits of common with racial system more forcefully considered. Asian Americans moving out of the Latin side backlash in foreign competition, starting stimulation, back to create a rational non-minded foreign foreigner. The non-minded yellow pair foreign circulation. That's when most Asian Americans two non-minded are the same moments which have the age of stress most burly as foreigners. Native to racial discrimination, underpinned as 20th and 19th century Asian exclusion as the non-minded image kill out both representation exist side by side. Korean Americans are simultaneously so oriented by both racial position. What I call foreign modern minority because the U.S. state collective and the difference of Korean church is described in parallel with U.S. constructed South Korean people unfamiliar, unimportant, weak, subordinate, and foreign. This accounts for the racialities in both countries, but the myth creates a discourse of the immigrant as a deserving poor, which justifies a decidedly black underclass attaining 2000 very few challenge opening knowledge, but is commonly as including the black working like their world migrant. Advocates incident Asian Americans popularized spirit by distinction. The black cultural poverty, social sciences produce numerous studies which can organize the question presuppose the mutual exclusion between blacks and immigrants on the other. The core assumption is just that immigrants inclined to social and cultural practice was saving from the underclass status. He was confirmed with the run of his discourse of the immigrant as a deserving poor. The location of the deserving poor determined behavior that constitute cultural poverty. Behaviors that foreigners are organized in a way that justice are rival as opposed to the devolution to decidedly black underclass. Now we are in confrontation with the modern minority. We rid white supremacy with the vector of oppression. It uses police minority violence. This results through impacts. One is the psychological violence against Asian Americans. Two is the oppression of other minority groups. One is white supremacy justifies to the myths. And three is the resentment between minority groups. As Challenging 93, the history discrimination, script by which Asian American bottom line, Asian Americans portray harming tells the belief in the bottom line to justify unique discrimination based on Asian Americans. The portrayal of police and ignore the needs. Do the important racial mind influence our heart. Becoming the lost arms the modern mind image has become a larger and question of some current social reality. One can see the label as a tool of oppression, which one did not see. Criticize the present day existence of discrimination against Asian Americans. Two legitimize the oppression of the very other racial mind. The myth of gains of substantial following both inside and outside the Asian American community. The myth had created audience unsympathetic to problems of Asian Americans. Well, to be outside to be without social service. Then the Asian Americans see officially deny funding for social service programs. The culture of Christianity exclude Asian American studies from education operating programs. Japanese American men earn income compared to those white men, but the only dislike cultural education. Income disparity for other Asian American groups are more glaring. Asian American have more organs for house so more Asian-American women compel the work and be ordered because the male members of the family are in such places. Wages may become inherent when geolocation considered. The myth was a dual harm by other racial minorities and poor whites who are blamed for not being society for African Americans. He has the poor whites who look at those Asians and they will remain in the country. This blame is justified by the meritocracy to prove that Asian Americans. We are complicit in the oppression of other racial minorities. It equates resentment against Asian Americans among African American, Latinos, and poor whites. The model by minority service community scale is Korean Americans, Los Angeles discovered the rise. Many Koreans now view themselves as human share. Common to the white majority, Anglo black minded. The bottom line is the salvatory charge with denied depression of Asian Americans. Thus, gave that. Affirm a process of Conscientization to expose the myth of the model minority that has been used as a justification for the position of the black minority. Contention 2 is Conscientization. We often compellingly participate without ever considering the possibility of debate can change the world. How the critical thinking and research skills we develop by meeting, advanced methodology, liberate press groups, often within their own social location. Our speech and focus is on the epistemological growth occurring from the activity and development of a critical conscience. Debate becomes more than just a game or a process of legal Conscientization. OCD 2007. The fact that young Asian Americans from wide range catching up with the active the final way active readers possibly young people with critical active. The active laws rest in no word. Given that political activity gives the rights to host for student activists to journalists see happening. These Asian Americans gone against the grain to become fully involved. They realize the positive conversion where the technique is countered by the chance for people to believe that there's hope for the future. Common factor true to develop the Asian American critical conscience. Now, our method is Conscientization, a process of conscious clarification that allows us to name the world and perceive how we exist in it. Through this dynamic process, we have come to realization that in fact they create the derogatory language within the discourse of one of the objects, which we have made a conscious attempt to remove. We have already begun and will continue to create real change. That's OCD 2007. Conscientization being able to enable a meaningful education, recognize, understand impact, social connection, and force of press out of the lives. The process of Conscientization involves a constant clarification of what maintain with us while we move out in the world. Post-recognition organizers giving the world more dynamic in the making. Such recognition inspires people to work against oppression, to begin to act as transform, naming the world and supporting steps towards active changes. Now, experimental learning activities like debate are necessary for Conscientization. OCD 2007. Asian American creative about Asian American critical conscience, commit or social state. Experimental learning activities combining the personal and active work of action moves students toward Asian American critical conscience. That our performance is critical because debate has elements that contribute to Conscientization. That must be brave for a factor change. OCD 2007. Critical elements contribute to Conscientization. Important to obtain information, accept school, uncommonly understand lives shaped by social force, and important element in education or social form made a difference. Schooling and talking about the Asian race and Asian American experience, inspired by the experience of other Asian Americans who struggle to overcome harsh conditions, committed to Asian American issues deeply when they transfer understanding into action, research to extend knowledge to learn from information, and finally Conscientization arises when the discrete elements work in combination. It was not a purely intellectual experience, absent social element. Instead, multifaceted, interrelated experience and reinforce each other. For activities to raise a critical class of Asian Americans, so that substance content to lay the common foundation necessary for people to see themselves in relation to the world. There's a family need to develop a great experience around the community, breaking from Brian and construct that often acting pronouns against the activity, conscious arising when people are exposed and combined learning lessons learned from a variety of sources. Now, the way we should interrogate this topic is through a discussion of history. This is strongly equal to us by knowing how history started, political struggle means emphasizing how practice very tangible facts of foreign history by reproducing, including excluding such quickly requires questioning how the fixed and static out of history celebrates U.S. actions of historical resources rather than question the uses of resources, which most likely outcome well their learning will be a reflection of the past on themselves that continue to celebrate missing colonial sensibility to validate history narratives now to reconsider what it means to develop a historical consciousness in our students that goes beyond archival and nostalgic impulses social information nation like you best in nation building. We can insist that history in the past has contributed to the present day understanding and is simultaneously materialist about this nation and advancing in history cannot be taken as a foundation ground. This new method of the nation is fashion culture examining history through its nations are made and unmade to admit that participatory nature of knowledge and to invite an active and critical engagement with the world so that students can come to question the authority of historical text will result in students realizing that the classroom is not solely a place to learn about history and being a national, but rather than a place to develop a common understanding of how a nation is formed and saying this. Understanding how the historical nation serves as the ideological alibi of the terrorism it offers us a starting point. This challenging is how we can succeed in questioning nation, not by just explaining what understands great, but considering how it is central. Mark the card as central.
Okay. How does Ben voting F change his relationship to the world?
How does it change Ben's relationship to the world?
Yeah.
It doesn't. We don't argue that it
How
does.
does it change, I guess, then our relationship to the world?
It changes our relationship as it gave me because we say that the process of Conscientization is a good process to liberate press groups.
Okay, it's a good process. Why is it?
No, that's outlined by Osajima cards and also the way we perform Conscientization through the 1AC.
Okay, how can your affirmative make us better able to engage the state?
Better able to engage the state. Well, the Osajima card says that Conscientization helps us learn a politics of conversion where we realize that there's hope for struggle to the future. It says that these experimental learning activities activate agency in order to speak out against oppressive precedents.
Hope for a struggle for the future,
Yeah.
right? And it activates agency?
Yeah.
Okay, so how does that mean we can better engage the state?
Activism speaks to the real possibility that young people can become pretty conscious and politically active. This is especially noteworthy given that political momentum has shifted to the right and hopes for student activism are drowned in the sea of apathy. We changed the sea of apathy.
Awesome. Okay, so I understand how the myth of the model minority has been a tool of white supremacy, but why does voting for you deconstruct that myth?
Because that's our method. We say that we should break down the myth of the minority through
What is the
Conscientization.
process through which you break down that myth?
Because we are performing and revealing and exposing and understanding that the modern myth is not true. What?
What have you performed?
We perform the 1AC speech.
Alright, so it's just like reading cards.
It's not just reading cards. This is the research that comes into these cards. This is the arguments that the cards make. It's the process
So
that we
research
relate to these
argumentation.
cards. It's the process of consolidation, which is an internal process. It's the way that...
Alright, I got you. So, sorry, how does that deconstruct the myth again?
Because John Clark says that the reason why this myth is believed in the current society is because ancients fall back on it. We're giving the myth the middle finger.
How so? I don't understand.
Because we as
Just
Asian
because you
Americans...
read some cards, you've
It's
given
not just
the myth
reading
the
cards,
middle
it's about the
finger?
advocacy we present in debate space. We say that we are no longer complicit with the myth, it's something that should be revealed and rejected. This is coming from our social location as Asian Americans, because Asian Americans perpetuate this myth.
How so?
Because they believe in it and fall back from it and perform it.
They believe in it, fall back on it, and
Yes.
perform it? I guess, so, you reading this AF in this space has given the myth the middle finger. I guess, what does that change about our relationship to that?
Because David and I realize this myth is not true, we say it's bad, and we say we should make an active effort to deconstruct it, and we
Okay, so
say
your
that
AF
as...
points out that a myth is bad, and then what?
Okay, and we reject the myth by reading this and introducing it to the space to use to liberate oppressed groups.
The focus here
You
seems to be on the myth of
that's,
the
all
model.
right, I have a question
I don't
about
think
that
you
part.
understand
You
what
reject the
happened.
myth of the model minority.
We reject the myth of the bottom minority.
Right.
Conscientizations, the
Is that
process
something about the
of-
liberation of oppressed groups? How does that work? How does
Because-
rejecting the myth liberate those oppressed
Do
groups?
you not read the 1AC cards about how the myth props up current society? Like,
It is a-
we have multiple reasons for that I could get into if we had more cross examples. Two of them. Hey, is that? Here you go.
Can I get the 1AC and the 1NC?
Yeah, it's on there.
The other one is on here. One is, or one ends, he's on the other.
Can you give me that paper? Already.
Alright, go for it.
Alright.
Yeah, go for it.
Just in case.
No.
It's gross.
Yeah.
Good?
Cool.
First off is the Settlerism critique. Our first link is Conscientization. Their front-loading of critical consciousness building, acting friends, decolonization, material change, talking to 12. We wonder whether there's a movie called Innocence focus on decolonizing the mind. They allow conscientization and with more uncomfortable attacks of originally interesting stolen land. The front-loading of critical conscious building can waylay decolonization, untouchable land, critical conscious building, not translated action. The app strategy of conscious raising is part of a flawed strategy of liberal anti-racism that reproduces settler colonialism that is the major cause of anti-Asian oppression. This Journal of Asian Liberation in 12. Liberal strategy of anti-racism, we went out liberals are intended to abolish institutions like the military base that produce stereotypes that we have keep us subordinate. Paul goes on to enlighten anyone's conscience, but rather to expose the institution that oppress us. We know who our enemies are. Those are true system white supremacy that shapes the terms of Asian American life and struggle. The first consists of the socialist form of the settlement of North America, also the land soul of the American Indians in Chicano, and settlers when created the terror of violence and racial hierarchy, which Asian Americans had to navigate of social issues formed through the expansion of youth militarism and Asian military conquest and the domination of corporations. Our second is settler privilege and complicity. These discussions of immigrant struggles in America, like the 1AC, must begin from a starting point of complicity and colonialism. Failure to recognize our own role in the colonial process reinforces the settler mentality. That's Kashina 13. Settlers of color engaging the oppression of indigenous peoples, the such as people of color having the expense of American Indians by addressing settler colonialism instead of working for Asian incest by majority of dominant society to the people must work for justice to decolonization and reflect those as injustice and colony colonizing the release of is necessary if I'm going to act any sort of solidarity. There's no critical function of one's or one reproducing a settler colonial state. We are so engaged in our own struggles that we have become a way to such our own role of colonial oppressions that there are ways in which settlers can work from justice against the recognition of our own role in the destruction of indigenous lands. Now, the focus on the difference of the Asian experience from the white body of the 1AC literally erases the ground on which we stand. This is a move to innocence that short circuits the radical potential of the 1AC. Settlerism must be a fundamental starting point. That's Patel in 13. I often hear people call it left politics claim that our relationship to this land is different. We claim innocence, we say that we are coming from other post colonies, that we too are victims even when we recognize that we are still there's no sense of urgency. I'm not saying that we share the same powers as whether we first come to the land of refugees or other than the immigration act. We all here now. We benefit from the settlement process. We need to stop paying mere lip service to the indigenous sovereignty and recognize that they force us that the human essential the same force that considers rejection genocide the first peoples know. Our third link is progress. Every settlement claim in the 1AC makes us a representation of social racial progress. Under the current situation is a marker of indigenous disappearance. The Smith of America and self-can like this only went through the disappearance of indigenous peoples, markers for racial markers for native peoples, or markers for genocide, the multiculturalism exists itself in blackness, from the expanded notion of the logic of settler colonialism. The primitive indigenous subject always disappears in the more complex subject. These signs of racial progress can be rearticulated as the markers of indigenous disappearance and racial engulfment as the white self-determining subject. Now, our interpretation is the judge should have overwhelming negative presumption. History accumulates destruction rather than unfolding in change. Perception must go against claims to specificity unless they have an alternative description of how time and history operate. This is 1 and 13. Time does not pass in a way. Time does not watch what's happened. The recent possessed by the logics and protocols of rational capitalism passed by a massacre that was repeated endlessly across the space and time. Recent terror returns from past does not end and take hold of bodies, institutions, and their nature, but does not let go. When we imagine the future as an outcome of the past, time the past falls away and the present disappears. So every future comes relatively from the devastating weight of everything that has come before. If there's no progress, instead of repetition, modification, identification, reversals, and suspensions, we know the future will be looking forward. Now, the metric for your decisions to be who best refuses settler moves to innocence. Their performance fails to confront either their own embodiment of settlerism, and it's a move to innocence that allows them to deny their own complicity while living, breathing, and debating on stolen ground that's talking negative 12. The adoption of decolonizing discourse attacks on the pre-existing tropes and get away more meaningful than life. Mistake of the tropes and decisions moves innocent, which reconciles settler guilty. As anyone what is irreconcilable with this, looks like relationship was incompatible between decolonizing projects and other social justice projects and reduce the frustration settler moves innocence are strategies that relieve the settler feelings to go without giving up land or power. Privilege settler projects that the game crew is so sensitive and the settler moves innocence are hollow. Now, failure to change settlerism makes persistent structural violence, ecocide, and social death and double death. Blessing in 13. The U.S. state reappropriates its imperial sovereignty through its double death, the twin execution that topologically locates outside the already inside. The symbolic colonial becoming of Pragmatism Good, the left front death, he refers to the living death and embodies the existence of the colonized. This experience is endemic famine, unemployment, high death rate, and inferiority complex in the absence of any hope. All of this has been life and incomplete death. Equalized has been visited by Native Americans. Native Americans are viewed as non-people leadership as expendable. All alternative is to refuse settler moves to innocence. Our bodies are always already guilty on colonialism, and we must maintain that guilt as a process of refusing complicity and further action genocide. Particularly, Brent and I are material beneficiaries of an unethical world that is predicated on the dispossession of indigenous peoples, and beginning from a recognition of this subject position is crucial. You should adopt an ethic of incommensurability, a refusal of any combination of the settler mentality, white, Korean, black, or any other, with decolonization. This is a rubric and rule of the ballot for evaluating the rhetorical frames offered in the debate. That's talking in 12. An ethic of incommensurability is set to conscious reconciliation by restoration of mercy. What will decolonize? What happened after incommensurability? Acknowledge that these questions need not be answered for decolonization. This requires an understanding of the uncommon of the uncoalistic politics. To fully understand the ethic of incommensurability means that abandoning the hopeless as they be commensurable to native peoples. It means removing the aspects and conditional causes that come to decolonization and unwritten innocence and native futures of the unwritten positive made possible. The ethic of incommensurability, decolonization is not an end, it is an elsewhere. And debates like this should not include the artificial debate construct known as the permutation. A debate about competing methodologies makes these debates nonsense and takes any hope of effective engagement with an active literature base. The community is beginning to transition to new standards of stasis and information rather than sofa topic posts, which is awesome, but the only way to ensure that we have debates that are both high quality and fair is refusing their structure of the permutation number. Furthermore, this kind of appeal to flexibility and combination is the essence of settler mentality, always ready to mutate. The desire to reconcile is a settler desire to be made innocent. That's talking negative 12. Everything within a settler society turns to destroy or something they need to disappear them from the land that is a source of decolonization by settler social system and interfering with one way. The settler tries to escape the unbearable search that our complexity. Desire to reconcile system violence, desire to disappear. Another common code of desire to play Indian is the settler desire to be made innocent to find some mercy in the face of violence of the guilt feeling. Next off is theory. Debate should be oriented through the creation of political strategies for material social change outside of the debate space. Activist strategies provide to prescribe methodologies for achieving material change. Results matter. Failure to have a course of action for mobilizing populations dooms the app. Even if they win their ethics claims, you have to evaluate the question of solvency outside this debate space first, day and night. It is not sufficient to take the most uncompromising position that defends freedom. It's necessary to actually win freedom. And states them to do good business. And if you don't actually spend the state, worthless, we don't have actual strategies for market realizing the vision. Revolutionaries have to probably to have a plausible plan for making revolution. Revolutionary to make a revolution of the moment. There are no guarantee that revolutionary. Many people when it comes to strong to anti-authority impulses now. Deliberative spaces like political discussions between students are valuable, but we need to tie our advocacy to addressing particular problems in the world. This is crucially effective in the context of race, as Cloudy 7. Knowledge of action is useless. The darkness of the way affects the darker dimension of humanity. There's many several problems that can bring African American life. How we can see black agency can be averted, the ways that escape radical racial reasoning, assume the tendency, tenderness used among African Americans because they are black, and messages responses to probably actual black people's image. The pragmatism hold close a fundamental faith in the capacity of the ordinary people to transform their circumstances. And the pragmatism of an African policy together is open up new avenues for thinking about both on college campuses. I have voted and vote my pragmatic commitments to as base for reinvesting and African American politics versus species claims of identity and democracy, way of life. consistency, and with a certain moral and ethical stance requires a political kind of disposition put into the cognitive victims of ultimate hypers and young African-Americans who take up the challenge of enforced policy that speaks to the political problems of this moment, and not simply mimic the strategy of the black freedom struggles of the 19th puppets telling into and out of the existence all the time. Pragmatism offers research for thinking about African-American policies in the 21st century, and academia data. Their interpretation means movements get swallowed up by the system. Fair to have a concrete strategy, take out solvency to the ad, trying to solve the economic cutoff, the crisis of loss, the crisis of the race represent. We think they thought about the concept, but we don't think about the how their theories are supposed to act. Most theory claims about it as James represent the world, but who changed it, never say but the rules of academic conferences. We need to converse our fantasy to avoid this repetition, the shifting from the critique to political construction. Our systems are organized around maintaining this with academia is all including the horrific consequences that the reason we give for what we actually do when we might have little to do with whether it's actually taking place. We say that articles are trying to demolish and look at how the system functions. References are only interest in but they're never proliferate. We're talking about changing the world sort of alibi. The academics tries to say here's trying to change the world. All it really does is maintaining a particularly operational closed automated system. What we need to reflect on ourselves what political theories that should be valid. We have people fascinated with political declarations, secrecies, and secret models of political engagement. Sorry, stop there.
Role of the ballot, what is it?
Our argument is that the role of ballot should be refused settler moves to innocence.
Reviews what?
Settler moves to innocence.
Settler moves to
Moves to innocence.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
So what is academia?
The space that we are in now. That's one. It's one example. This is one example of academia.
Is it good or bad?
Trying to create social movements in it without a blueprint for change is bad.
Okay, what is your blueprint for change look like?
In the context, well, this isn't like a K alternative thing. It's just like you don't solve anything and you should lose because you don't have a blueprint.
Okay, so what is all? So how should we have solved?
What?
How should we have solved?
That's your group.
That's our group. Okay. Is this K conditional?
This isn't a critique. It's just like an interpretation of how the one. Oh, you mean the settlerism
Yes.
thing, or is the status quo always not?
Status quo is the logical option. If it is conditional, then why don't you link to this tucking in card that says conditional clauses that punctuate decolonization and underwrite.
The alternative is unconditional. I don't think that means that our stance on.
You just said,
The
wait,
one
you
you
literally
see.
just
The
said the
alternative.
status quo is the logical option.
In terms of the alternative, yes. We
Okay.
can go for solvency about the app. We can make a raise about why you.
Will this
reduce
K be in the
settlerism.
will this K be in the twin?
Probably. Yeah.
Yes, is that like yes or no?
I'm not going to tell you that.
I don't think the alternative.
Like, I don't
is
understand.
The alternative is
Why
a
doesn't
thing that has a
why
status.
isn't political reform being complicit with settlerism?
Who said we should do political reform?
Your second off-case argument.
It wasn't a reformer. It wasn't like change the state from within.
Activist strategy should prescribe methodologies for achieving material change. Results
Yeah.
matter.
You can be like a revolution against the state, but you have to have a blueprint for how that occurs and how that materially comes about, rather than saying there is oppression and there is a myth.
Okay, the Glog card is an explicit defense of pragmatism. Why is the Glog card you read?
Yeah, pragmatism is distinct from like make the state better.
Why doesn't the second off-case argument link to all your things about being complicit with colonialism?
Would it? I just made arguments why we are not about this. Our argument isn't like we should like automatically make the state or current society better. Rather,
Like, why
it is
did-
the argument
why
that
did
if you are going to prescribe change, that change needs to have a blueprint or a way for achieving the material
Okay.
result of that change,
Okay, so
rather than
what
an
is your-
infomercial about the
give me
myth
your
of modern
give me your
life.
blueprint for getting rid of settler colonialism.
The alternative is to understand that we are all complicit in settler colonialism. This is actually an important argument about the alternative. We should
I
not
understand.
prescribe change in the context of colonialism.
We should not
let-
prescribe change.
Yes,
And then the
because-
second argument is we should prescribe change.
No. You didn't let me finish the first. You didn't let me finish the rest of the first answer. Our argument is that as we are all complicit in colonialism, we should let the indigenous people who have things to say about what we should do by colonialism tell us what to do. We shouldn't
Okay.
prescribe.
So who's this indigenous person telling you what to do? Could you please tell me what they said?
They haven't yet. That's the point.
They haven't.
Because
So
we
how
have
do you
not
perform your alt?
the same way you perform the 1AC.
Except we're Asian.
Yeah, we are complicit in colonialism.
You just said you need an indigenous person telling you what to do.
No, I said that was what.
Yeah, I'm using something.
Okay, Asian
It's
time, I'm
ridiculous.
gonna continue cross-section. The Tucker card is, quote, this kind of appeal to flexibility and combination is the essence of the settler mentality. Why aren't you reading two off-case position? Why isn't that a combination that results in settler mentality?
What? You have to win that they are entirely contradictory before you can make that argument.
A couple of points.
I think we've made reasons why they're not.
The Journal of Asian Liberation card says that we need to expose the institutions that oppress us and know who our enemies are. Who are the institutions and who are the enemies?
What do you mean?
The Journal card says we need to expose the institutions that oppress us so we know who our enemies are.
You've done that. Our argument is that that is not sufficient, and it
It
simply
literally says we have to
reproduces-
do that. How do you do it?
What?
How do you expose the institutions that oppress us and know?
We
who
have
our
exposed the
enemies
structure of colonialism that we all take part in.
Okay.
We are all complicit in the structure of colonialism that makes up our society today. We need to recognize that we are complicit in that.
9-12.
9/12.
No, still right. These are your questions.
Wait, with your 1 and 2?
Yeah.
I love the opener. Love the opener.
Well, you know, framework.
No, the shared docs.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm saving this next.
We also have Pinecrest in that we didn't read framework and the anti-flag.
Charlie wasn't telling about that 1 and 2?
No, it's framework.
No, framework and Wilderson.
That's framework.
That makes sense.
And they flipped neck to read that too.
No, I'm confused. What? Whatever.
Where do you get a stand? What do you think I'm doing?
Let's just leave off the.
Stand and speak off here?
It's gonna be case. I guess the framework type arguments. The critique.
Is the two over here?
Yeah. Here.
Yeah.
Is this a case?
Page on that one.
Is anyone not ready? Ready? The 180 has dropped the impacts of the 180 versus the myth of the modern mind causing psychological violence in Asian American because we are always swept on the rug. Besides substituting its impairing things like welfare policy where we're not giving money or education policy where we're considered perceived as too smart. Second, impacted justifies the oppression of all the minorities because Asian Americans are put in. Look at these smart Asians. Why can't you be the same Chicago black and indigenous people are told why can't you be as part of it? And the Asian Americans also disparage resentment because the country to super they still have now decided to mass conscientization across the neighboring world and understanding more and taking a step to actively changing that world. They have not critiqued why that alternative is not able to solve for the critique or solve for the framework arguments, which is the only way to have any engagement in these equality framework arguments. First, singular strategy to perform without developing a critical concept failed their engagement. The net calls for fails while the after allows for true engagement with the political structure blown in 11. Perform strategy claims to white man's gaming appeals to white supremacist government and is responsible for regional harm, Texas Pacific, white supremacy, working with the institution maintains a different set of power relation when they never become a fear, the conflict, they divide the individual suffering, so escaping because they try to not way to do it, missing the precaution and reform because they will frequently make for one by and make it possible for the traffic of the 14th and 15th Amendment Constitution tonight. Since the Chinese immigrant strategies that target individual power will appeal to limited races and simply replicate them. Now we must recognize that the political is not the only method for change. This terms of critique and provides good behavior. 1 in 11 what it actually is in keeping with the political process will help us to great periods of racial equality has been fixed and become the effect of real change by the segregated to the military black vote. There was no showing significant violence because racial has to recognize the limits of traditional form of political participation, prerequisites for accuracy seeking and eliminated racial injustice advocates for those things believing the government is best and only event for trade. Also, this is a dissent to the Settlerism critique. You cannot say that we must have a prescription of change and then on the critique say that we cannot prescribe a change for the Settlerism critique because we do not know the voices of the indigenous. This is very egregious and considered the Tucker and Yang evidence would say that they must conditionally, unconditionally allow the giving back the land to the indigenous population, stop the Settlerism mentality. You cannot do that. And just the reason why their performance of the 180 should be rejected. The role of the ballot is to who best methodology performance. The British press go on to critique. Right now, I will.
We have a strategy.
We have a strategy. Conscientization is the only methodology provided. Settlerism critique. I will answer the links here. First, the first link is about critical consciousness. However, they just say that critical consciousness should be applied to the colonialization of indigenous people. This is no reason why the permutation should be able to solve also critical consciousness. It's able to solve also critical conscience. Critical consciousness is able, it's not just talking about it, opening up your mind, it's actually taking the action which their card does not take. So, and it's a misunderstanding of 4 years of methodology not been able to 12. Conscientization is not merely become conscious of the world, but choosing to act as smart idea of relationship between theory and practice. Well, only present the entire limit fraction theory simply dialogical should not be understood as an experience stage which has limited movement made divine. Practice like goes to kind of practice which is divine and prior stage of reflection, subsequent area, chain orientation are all of it. Simultaneous. The second link argument is this complicity argument. This does not make sense because the discussion in which is not about a discussion about the oppression of the indigenous people. Just because we talk about Asian American doesn't matter. We actually perpetuate the oppression of indigenous people like in these states, or we can't. We would say the process of conscientization able to solve the pedagogy is the colonial but inherent in objectification in language. Conscientization is a better defense than rejection. All in apples of 7 many indigenous cultures have their own science system as well, which is honest and inconsistent, objected by the knowledge of racial association for value. Reject the anti-dependent culture, reclamation, Indian heritage, objected by knowledge of all cultures in that system, and objected by the knowledge of ultimately indigenous people have been colonized. It's not through them reducing all over to cultural reclamation, rejecting literature. Will ever say these cultures also conscientization, not fault of liberals on progress that their third links talk about shank and call for fear. What is all comes down to freedom, but not freedom in the active liberal sense. What is according to the capacity to exist in a constant available for the action of freedom can only talk about actualization of capacity for self-determination. Conscience is another way of thinking freedom and realization. Our critical capacity. Also, the third link is talking about how we make a myth about how we're going for progress and giving indigenous the right number right now, which is not the argument of the 1AC. We think there's a myth that Asian Americans are stereotypically hardworking and smart that is propping up the oppression of some other minorities, and that we using our social identity can reject that. Using a process of conscientization. Also, conscientization is a prerequisite to indigenous knowledge can be harmful without it. Wilkins and London Free will clear up the importance of indigenous knowledge. You have to respect the cultural culture to ignore the point to ignore the world consciousness that's to the cultural knowledge, but rather to accept the cultural knowledge from anywhere students, teacher, engage quickly posting a tradition opposition knowledge and student values to assume that the critique of knowledge is the same as dismissing not only indigenous knowledge promotes the stable practice, not equity, generational knowledge, and including language tradition that led to critical progression, but also to conscientization, pure settlerism, all and apples of seven respect for knowledge, living experience, serving to the learning horizon, respect for public knowledge limit, and respect for cultural context, globalization that started a point for education to destroy student culture and knowledge would be tantamount to destroying a career pedagogy. Everyone's stability that keeps actually making a case for the term. Now I'm gonna make the permutation debate right there first. Is permutation to go different strategies for different people. This is not stealing your permutation, but having a state of coexistence. Their theory arguments do not make sure we get a permutation in this debate because there is absolutely no link to the upper the negative. It's gonna stand here and be like, oh, we have cards specific about conscientization, but it's in the context where conscientization is not applied and misappropriate. However, the 1AC is not that misappropriation. Using it specifically in the context of Asian Americans, no reason why colonization. There are also different strategies for different people turn these arguments because you cannot accept it. Now here's a dissent to their alternative disconnected objection narration. They say that they demand what the indigenous people know. However, they don't cite an indigenous person inside the 1AC. They have a view from nowhere called callous advocacy, which justifies atrocities, don't need editorial and validation to different more on them facility institutional violence when we confuse the different one subject from the objectivity for existence and something social location. One is isolation for social role. We think about shelter standpoint we purpose of voices who can memorial themselves for social well, we have to value the voices who experience social suffering and more directly. You cannot just think about one place you have to go there. So don't put the practice of similar treatment when you travel. You continue to walk along offering support to something to people economic violence when we confuse it we are promoted idea of responsible attention to life daily interacting challenge the indifference and not exemplify such contradiction objectivity when things do not objective attitude toward the desk and objectivity and provide convenient ally for turning back to the plane suppressing passion impulse that would otherwise be trouble and violent. Now they bracket all others into a uniform action speaking for everyone to empower their own views that creates a view from nowhere down to identifying philosophy involving self-bracketing and irrelevant theory superfluous conversation when I search for truth that we are told for reasons for no one the white philosopher pursue to speak for all of us without slight mention of his or race identity what is authorship of authority to speak from nowhere for empowering through one goes through one thing becoming to lost now the alternative also fails because of its contradiction. You cannot say that we should engage in these political institutions to be able to actually engage them and say that we should give stop the decoloniality and give the indigenous people their land and their rights back. The state is always going to be colonial. The state is still want to cause the genocide of Native Americans. You cannot use that as an actor and say that we are forced to defend the actor and say that's bad. The negative needs to be liable for their representation. They bring it to debate contradiction. So saying white supremacy in the economy and criticising 95 will not discover the political chance one self white contradiction or importing elements in construction. When is these contradictions? When is it unable to maneuver through our challenge? It garners the power to build to many things white uniform to the soul. Any different contradictions are central to the dynamic empowering rescue. It's reason why they don't let them come and be like, oh, colonialization and settlerism is the root cause of all their impacts. They have not explained it. They want to see why the myth of the modern miner is propped up by the indigenous knowledge. And however, we would say that the myth of the modern miner is what provide the settlerism to perpetuate into the immigrants who come to the United States, and the United States can just settle the immigrants and assimilate them into our own culture. The one you see is a strict term against the impact of the yeah.
Their piece of drawing card literally quotes, people fascinated with political declarations see critique as the real mode of political engagement. This is a bright they're complicit.
Wait. Right?
Yeah, this is a reason for contradiction. They're complicit with political engagement and reformism. That's their first critique says it's bad. Like literally.
Brian Card literally says that you cannot be complicit with theory and critique only, and says that you must have a political action. This is directly contradictory with the alternative versus that we have
And
to
also,
provide
reading
something.
both off-case arguments is a combination that makes it several mentality.
Take prep. 8 or 10?
10.
Cool.
Two AC cards that work, right?
Yeah.
That is very interesting. Yeah, I want you to try that. That's how nasty it is. Like you should see.
Yeah.
Okay. 9 or 12. Yeah, I'll do cross. 9 through 7. Cool. I want to talk about your 1AC Osajima card. Is that how you pronounce it? Osajima, yeah. It describes that we recognize the world not as a given world, but as a world dynamically in the making. Then what? The second Osajima card.
Okay.
We recognize our world. Then what?
Taking a step to change it.
Like what?
Like going out, breaking down the myth of the model minority,
How?
like in school. Whenever racist discourse comes out, I'm like, yo, that's racial. Talk about it, actively expose it.
Why did you need to read the F in this space to be able to do that?
Why not read it in this space? To be it is a place where we gain critical education from multidisciplinary activities. We have self-academic orientation, reflections, and orientations in this activity. This activity, you've been participating for like 4 years of your life.
Fun fact,
Pepsi
Pepsi
Challenge,
Challenge, name a team that ran the starting before us.
I'm sorry?
Pepsi Challenge, name a team that ran the starting before us.
Why should I have to do that?
Because it proves our knowledge is new. And
That wasn't my
Just like
argument at all.
knowledge is important in general. Like conscientization, it's not. What your cards are saying assumes that conscientization is just naming our world. No, it's not naming our world. It's naming our
What
world.
has the
and taking actions that
1AC
change
done
it.
besides naming the world?
The 1AC has named our world and said, me and Michael, as Asian Americans, are not going to accept the myth of the model minority. The one
And then
process
what
we
did
go
you
through a
do?
conscientization breaks down the myth
And
of
then
the
what
model
would
minority.
1AC do? When the timer went off.
Change.
How?
Like it's an active step to change. Like rejecting the myth of the model minority is not just naming the world.
All right,
You don't
all right.
understand what your change is.
I want to talk about
open up your mind.
the objectivity and view for nowhere arguments. Why are we that when we've explicitly recognized our own role in settler
That's
colonialism?
not what
Everyone's
disconnected
role is-
objectionary should
Okay,
be
so
saying.
what's the link?
We're saying that you should, if you're gonna say that Settlerism's bad and colonialism
Yeah.
has been perpetuated against indigenous knowledges,
Yeah.
you should probably cite maybe an indigenous author in your 1MC.
That's the opposite of what we should do. We should
Opposite.
let
You
them
said
speak
that,
for
no,
themselves.
Cross-section of the 1MC, you said that
What?
people, they should speak for themselves. Why did
Yeah.
you not cite what they wanted for themselves?
Because we don't know. Because we have always come from
That's exactly why this is a disconnected objective narration. You
Why?
cannot claim that this is.
Why is letting them
You cannot claim that
themselves
breaking down
disconnected?
Settlerism and that you two reading this in a 1MC is best for them, when you're not them, when you explicitly concede. Okay,
You cannot just read about the wild places, you have to go there.
Okay, how does the app go to wild places?
You're Asian.
This is a dissent to your.
What?
Are you kidding me? One, we have been perpetuated as model minorities in debate. That's the whole 1AC. We're using our social identity to challenge structures of oppression. Second, this is a dissent to your alternative where you're like, oh, we just recognize our white privilege, yet you don't do anything about the indigenous people.
Okay. All right, 9 through 7? Cool.
Why is this highlighted? I had to quickly highlight it, and I thought it was most appropriate. So their claim some privilege assumes that assembly to dominate capture of capitalist structures. They say it is
Okay.
514.
Okay.
514 left. So I have, that's what
Completely wrong.
Okay. Oh, 2 and 0 and 3 is Centennial.
I guess I'm not completely wrong. 'Cause the second is stupid. All right, where are we going?
Just the K. The Settlerism stuff.
Should I insert some rows or some overviews?
Maybe a few. It's not huge.
Okay. All right. I'm ready to go.
Everyone good? Okay.
Settler moves to innocence, a race of ground on which we stand the act of conscientization assumes a certain innocence that the amount of minorities in the oppressed body incapable of taking part in the oppression itself. They ignore the fact that we can all benefit from the colonization process. Our links turns the case the same genocide of the first people's mindset that justified the dehumanization of racial minorities. We control the internal interwar genocide. Settler colonialism is what makes it possible. Publics and 13 the United States conducted global bloodshed of the Civil War and Western Asia, the Arabian Peninsula, the African drones, the Americans new weapons, the United States peace and simple because the faulty extensions of the Imperial drone are people logical that enable the domestic policies of imperial exploitation of Native American lands located the government to control the states and these small transport systems of the first nation constituencies and people fail to confirm the hegemonic contract praise the imperial without any foreign policy to definitely domestic. The former has precisely defined the line of domestic and domestic war of the United States foreign policy prevents wars. The next domestic violence of those wars to provide the former constitution of the violent very comes from the unanswered foundation of the United States, the imperial domestication, the internal the other chapters from political territories happening in the United States where after the fact the United States cannot delineate its own self to proceed the name of the internal with the measures through its formal policies for the Native Americans homelands being part of the 100 years of war. Here been assured the Native put nothing less than the original by law and the violence of cultural justification. The link arguments, the first link is conscious raising. He's wrong about our evidence. Our evidence doesn't say that conscientization should happen in the context of the Native American. The Native American, it says that the conscientization in itself is not unproductive. It interrupts decolonization strategies of anti-racism and conscientization are a move to innocence. We feel like we're combating the colonial mindset, but the failure to recognize the settler privilege creates a systems of oppression. Conscientization acts as a stand-in for material change. The link alone turns in case the institution of colonialism define the structure of anti-racism. Things like military bases and military corporations manufacture these stereotypes that the abstracts of combat. He's wrong about our link arguments. They are that conscientization is only productive in the context of indigenous peoples. It's exactly the opposite. More evidence talking negative to the decolonization process, repopulation, the indigenous land, the pursuit of critical conscience, social justice can also be settler, losing innocence, diversions, distractions, which line the settled feeling of the consent of the land, the give the land privilege, permutation will be answered below. He says that their key to take action that allows action to happen, but they don't outline a course of action, which is exactly our argument on the other flow. In order to create material change, you need to have a specific goal for your strategy. You need to have a specific goal for your strategy. The second link argument is settler privilege and complicity. The affirmative attains that they were successful without recognizing their role in the oppression and colonization of indigenous people. They will undoubtedly say that they combat white supremacy and say that solves the impact, but that's the link. They engage in their own struggle and give a priority without accepting their role in the violent colonization. The F is merely lip service. He reads a bunch of cards about how they allow action to happen. Cross-sex literally painted our link argument. First is the engagement in the unethical system. Michael got really indignant when I asked him how he makes it easier to engage in the state. He says that the F gives us agency and makes us political activists capable of reforming the state. That's the link. The ground on which we stand can never be made ethical. Second, the conscious raising argument. They say the rejection of the amount of minority focus on epistemological growth occurring from the activity and the development of critical consciousness. The opponent of that growth cannot occur. We cannot be made ethical. The third link argument is progress. The narrative of progress erases the indigenous struggle. Our interpretations that the judge should always have an overwhelmingly negative presumption. They have not provided a counter interpretation of the way that history functions, which means that their affirmative can never actually happen. The only thing that they could get by winning their contradiction
contradictions argument is that the alternative doesn't solve anything. That's just a reason why you default presumption. The judge should always refuse to believe that the app effectuates any substantive change and should vote negative on presumption. The bar should be extremely high for the app because, quote, time does not pass, it accumulates in the balance of the current world, quote, repeats endlessly across space and time. That's the Toonsy Dillon evidence. Only we have a meta description of how history operates. Every one of their cards implicitly relies on the notion of progress and change that our evidence is criticizing. They don't have a defense of those assumptions, which means they perpetually have been shown to be false. That's our Toonsy Dillon piece of evidence. Next to the next two arguments is they're a prerequisite to the conscientization of the indigenous population. These are the view from nowhere, not the critique. These are the view from nowhere, not the critique. We don't claim to know the indigenous people. We don't claim to we don't claim to bring them into consciousness because we can't. Their arguments are that they solve are exactly the link argument. The alternative is to reject settler moves to innocence, maintaining guilt and a recognition of our role in continuing the genocide of Native people, refuses complicity and further acts of genocide. Voting negative isn't just a recognition of colonial violence, but rather it's a vote to maintain and cultivate a sense of deep uncomfortability and guilt. Ben is a white male cannot affirm the process of conscientization without recognizing his role in the colonization process. The ethic of incommensurability is that the world on which we stand cannot be made ethical. The alternative is a recognition of that. The fight against white supremacy is a game of chess. They focus on eliminating a single piece, but we try to destroy the board on which the game of white supremacy is played. Instead of analyzing the particular tools of white supremacy uses, we need to understand the material logic that allows white supremacy to manifest itself. Their obsession that we can make the world a better place, and that the alternative needs to take some sort of action is exactly our link. There's no way that we can change shit. The best thing that we can do is maintain our guilt. The permutation. Even if they get perms from a theoretical standpoint, substantially they embody the settler mentality. Perms are whiteness, and another link is the same link to innocence that our link arguments outline. The ethics of incommensurability beats up permutation. One is the tuck and yang proves that the perm is incompatible. It's an intention to reconcile the settler mentality, but the ethic of incommensurability is a recognition that we cannot compare the suffering of racialized minorities to that of indigenous people. The perm is the same type of compromise politics that we criticize. Third is the integrationism. Just as the perm replicates the liberal model of pluralism that attempts to wash away the feelings of the one. I see decolonization must be grappled with on its own terms. While 2012 incorporating indigenous self-determination with against the one environmentalization of indigenous struggle with the leftist narrative, we cannot be conscious of replicant flows. Unfortunately, indigenous identities within our existing narratives, indigenous struggle cannot be simply accommodated with the other struggle and demand solidarity on its own terms. And the permutation as a link or alternative cannot be grafted onto the one I see despite its critical anti-racism and kills the very possibility of decolonization. It recenters whiteness, it resettles theory, and extends the innocence to the settler. Tucking in 2012, the kind of inclusion is one that exposes the domestication until the decolonization. Decolonization is not a metaphor, when the metaphor. If decolonization kills the possibility, decolonization resettles theory, and the innocence of the settler retains the settler. Future decolonization cannot be grafted onto the pre-existing discourse, even if they think they're critical. They receive adoption of the settler appropriation, and there's a footnoting dissent to the permutation. All solves the case, but the permutation ensures a continuing colonialism, even if it solves everything else. Churchill, 96 usual technique for the point with the analogy of the indigenous landlords. The one does not really have time to get to the temple of enumerated racism. There's your problem with poverty embedded in the Orthodox faith. Society resulting from the standard of the colonial societies of punctual, since possible, it is sex with racism all the way, representative of the emergence of the consolidation of Europe's centric nation state of the socio-political economic organization. Everything is contingent on maintaining the internal cohesion realization of the indigenous right to understand, the destroy the ability to do sex, particularly imposing racist, sexist, classist, homophobic, militaristic order, and the non-indigenous. The next argument is that we don't cite the indigenous persons. That's exactly the point. The recognition that there's nothing that we can do to reconcile the colonial violence, but rather than holding on to and maintaining a deep sense of guilt is the only because we can't rectify the ground on which we stand is the reason why we don't need solvency for alternative necessarily. We just need to maintain the sense of guilt to recognize our own privilege within this round. The Yancey piece of evidence will concede the frame that you need to have an account for your own privilege as an action. That is our link argument. The fact that they don't take into account their privilege speaking on stolen land is exactly the reason why the Yancey argument links to them more than it links to us. The contradiction stuff will be, and the one and the last argument is that we don't get any like turns case arguments. Yes, we do. Our one is the evidence outlines reasons why we turn the case. One is the evidence outlines reasons why we turn the case. The material results of the colonial policy, such as things like military bases, the things that prescribe the myth of the amount of minority. Here's what happened. This is a crucial starting point for us to try to have the extinction of the native people, ensure the end of all life, that they all can reshape the globe and solve managerial control the status quo. Techner, 96 recognition of indigenous officers, barbarism, necessity, rethink, and constructive construction, having significant ripple effect on the other states around the world, should available to contribute to the great in the Western survival American Indian cultures have different the sustainability, survivability, that we know the loss of predictability of these people, and survivability can maintain the fellowship that may in the recognition of indigenous people and political sovereignty, and spurs all other movements. Failure to give structural priority to the history of the United States colonialism makes the app nothing more than the redistribution of power and loop deriving from the opposition of North America, but achieving success of decolonization spurs all other movements. Churchill, 96 about the native people, the freedom of the lives, population depend the ongoing existence, society of the United States, internal political liberation progress, other people inclined to condemn the United States military imperialism or private reasons by how the lifestyle of past the distinction of the indigenous land, mention the instead of attempting to progress the issues, once facing and seek to divert the attention more important topics complete, the custom comes to synonymous redistribution, probability regarding occupation. Occupation.
So you're saying that it's all right that you don't do anything as long as you're guilty.
Our alternative is to reject settler moves to innocence. We think we need to maintain this sense of
So
guilt
maintain
and
guilt. So
uncomfortability.
let's say Trayvon Martin was still walking down the street. You saw George Zimmerman shoot him, and you felt guilty about it, but you didn't do anything. Are you
No,
complicit
that's
with
not,
that or
that's
not?
not our argument, dude.
Like, I don't understand how you can say you're
Like,
guilty
obviously in the
and
real
not
world,
do
there are
anything
things that we
about
should
it.
do to stop different forms of oppression. but in
Wait,
the
you say that you
facing
acknowledge
academia,
Brent, you acknowledge colonialization is something bad, you're guilty about it, but you don't do anything to do anything about that.
That's not the argument.
So it's okay for white people to say that colonialization is bad, we're guilty, and not do anything?
No, that's not the argument.
Then what's the
You're
argument?
Before action is taken, we need to recognize our guilt. We can take action once we recognize
Okay,
that
what's your
people-
action?
That's the point of the critique is not like a thing that takes action, right? It's something that takes issue
what's
with
the
the way
point
the
of the second-
affirmative was presented.
Yeah, but what's the point of the second alternative, which says you must have a specific strategy?
You mean the second off case?
Yeah,
Those are
second
just
off.
solvency arguments, right?
Wait,
If
I thought you said that
here-
there was no alternative for the first off.
What? No, all solvency is.
All right.
What do you mean? There's an
Alright,
alternative.
let's
The
go back.
alternative is to reject settler moves.
Let's talk about your links. I'm going to read you a line on your Kandini 13 card. Instead of working to attain success by joining a normalizing dominant settler society, people of color must work toward justice through decolonization. Isn't me and Michael perpetuating the myth of the model minority assimilating into these dominant settler societies?
We think that even if that's true, your strategy of challenging that myth is no better.
Wait. So that we should continue to act like model minorities?
No,
That's a better idea.
not at all. We think you should reject settler moves to innocence. That's
Yeah,
why we have an
I'm- I'm
alternative
questioning
to resolve uniqueness issues.
Question is, how do I do that? Like,
Right, that is the idea of holding out, maintaining this sense of internal guilt and uncomfortability that the ground upon which we
so
stand
it's
cannot be
okay
made
for me
ethical.
to be guilty but perpetuate violence against Asian Americans?
What?
It's
No,
okay
it's
for
not
me
okay
to
to
be-
perpetuate violence. The idea of understanding that the imperialist actions that the United States takes are never ethical would also come with the recognition that you
Yeah,
probably
but not
shouldn't
do anything about it. Okay,
No.
Brent, let's
Oh my God.
hypothetically say you're in a
It is like a fundamental rethinking of the way that
Brent,
we relate
you are in
to
a
the
Cambodian
oppressed.
killing field right now. How does rejecting Settlerism do anything?
I'm sorry, but we're not. That's the point.
It's a hypothetical question. What does rejecting
These
Settlerism
hypotheticals
do
aren't
for
helping
people?
anybody. That's the point, Gabe. You keep coming up with these ridiculous hypotheticals, but you ignore the fact that you are
No,
speaking
I'm just saying
upon
that
the
this
ground that
alternative
colonize the indigenous
morally-
people.
I'm just saying this alternative.
Stop coming up with hypotheticals.
No, I'm saying this
That's the
alternative is
point.
morally repugnant. You can't just say you're guilty about it and not do anything about
The
it.
recognition of guilt and the recognition of
Fine.
privilege is what makes us rethink our relationship to the very people that we're oppressing. That's it.
I got it for my birthday 8 years ago.
You got this for your birthday?
Someone gives me Alright, there are cards.
That's a bit like.
Yeah, right?
What do you want?
Yo, yo.
Yeah, I'm taking prep. I'm taking prep.
Oh,
sorry.
shit, my bad. What do you want for your birthday? I think you decided. So you're just gonna be guilty about it? You're not gonna throw it away?
We used 39 seconds.
12. What's 39 minus 12?
20 or 27, yeah.
39 minus
No,
12.
that's 12.
No, it's 12 minus
39 minus 12 is 27.
It was 12 minus
39.
So 833. 833 left.
33? Sure.
If 27 is what that minus 12 is.
It is.
All right. You got 8.
Absolutely.
833 left.
Order.
We're not in math class.
Bottom of Settlerism, where they made the contradiction arguments,
Uh huh.
and then our theory. Blueprints goes over. All right. Is everybody good? There. Last one. Don't do that to me, Charles. Come on.
I don't know what he's talking about.
These arguments will mostly be answered on the theory argument because it relies on a fundamental misconception of what our argument is. If we can clarify on the top of the theory page what exactly our argument is, it proves that this is not a contradiction, and the idea that we read the critique alternative conditionally is not a reason to vote negative, just a reason that at the very worst, it's a reason the alternative does not solve anything. You should vote negative on presumption. All those arguments will be in the twin C.
theory stuff. If you're going to have a revolution, you've got to get the gun somewhere. Our argument is fundamentally a theory argument about what a methodology needs to be. In order for society to change, there needs to be a plan. You need to know how to raise money, change minds, etc. There are two dimensions to this argument. First, solvency proves that the affirmative has no way to achieve change outside this realm. There, one AC Okajima evidence that was very explicit about understanding and recognizing our world, but the ONEC does not have any of that, which means they don't change anything because they have not prescribed what they do after they recognize the world that they live in. The second is a reason to vote negative. The fundamental interpretation of what a methodology should be, and they don't meet it. And also, there's a vote negative. It's a theory argument. Now, it is also important to understand what our argument is not. We do not think that you should engage in the policy or state or institutions or etc. It's not a policy good argument. It is a pragmatism good argument in that it says that in order for a revolution to happen, you got to have a budget. You got to know where to buy the guns. You have to know where the Black Panther had to know where the guns to protect themselves. They had to know where to get the money to pay for the meals that they were able to feed people. That is a reason that it's just solving stories without the affirmative. Now, like the argument that they're going to spend a ton of time exploiting is that is the contradiction, supposed contradiction between this and the critique alternative. There's a distinction I'm going to make here. The critique alternative says in order for action to take place, we need to recognize our privilege and guilt. We can take action once we've understood, once we've taken a back seat to the people who actually know what needs to happen. This is an epistemology argument about our privilege and our role in taking action and taking flawed action because we have not recognized our privilege. Their assertions about their identity and them being Asian prove that they should have taken action because epistemologically they know what needs to happen because it is their subject position. The alternative says we are not indigenous peoples. We are guilty in colonialism, which means in order for action to take place, we need to recognize our guilt and privilege. We don't preclude action in any way. We just preclude action without understanding our privilege before it, which are all linked arguments that apply to the app but not to our alternative. Now the first argument is critical consciousness key stuff. The first two cards both say that political action is bad, reformism of the political is bad, policies are bad, etc. That when policies are taken, they oppress one at the expense of they free one at the expense of another. This is fundamentally not our argument. It isn't that you need to take action in the there's a distinction in policy and the political because while we don't say you should reform policy, we do say you should take action, but that action needs to have a blueprint or a way for achieving the material allocation of resources and the change in that allocation of resources, which the affirmative does not have. Now, the next argument is that links to the alternative and it's unconditional stuff. I explain most of the stuff at the top of the page. Don't reject our performance. Reject the if they win all of these contradictory arguments, at the very worst, reject the alternative, and all of our presumption and linked arguments are DAs to the AF and still reasons to vote negative. The last argument is that they meet. They do not meet. The list of tests should be the 1AC as a holistic performance. They said they recognize the world. They had a lot of arguments about recognizing the myth of model minority, but no articulation of what they do afterwards. I obviously asked him in cross-checks, and 2AC cross-checks, he had some things. But the point was that the initial holistic presentation of their methodology did not include those things, which makes it ineffective and a reason to vote negative. Anything else, Brett? Also, the conditionality arguments, in terms of the Tuck and Yang card, conditionality in a debate sense is distinct from unconditionally resisting settler colonialism, because the alternative being conditional in a debate sense is distinct from us kicking stuff and saying colonialism is not important. We'll still go for the links as DAs to the affirmative. It's just a question of what the status of the alt was, which is fundamentally distinct from what the Tuck and Yang card says conditionality means, unconditionality versus conditionality means.
Okay, Brett?
Yeah, 833.
Room, put your wallpaper and everything. That's not on your computer. This, yeah.
Also, do it right now.
Okay, do this.
Do that. Are you putting this one together, separate from this one together? 2 inches there.
You should also check out John Murillo's shit. That's perfect. Yeah, Murillo.
No, this is the one too.
Oh, did you cut the new, the 2013 article that I sent you?
Yes, I'm going to read that. I'm making the one that's
Oh, I thought you were just showing me what it is.
No,
It's complete. I'm good. 658.
Case.
Framework.
Yes, that was okay.
Give me a second to get this right.
Alright, Ben, you good? Alright. The negative block has once again dropped all internal impacts of the YC. They could try to cause psychological violence against Asian Americans because Asian Americans are excluded when this status quo. They are not given education opportunity program. You don't explicitly see the argument that Southeast Asian immigrants say the portion of the poor within the United States were concentrated who are oppressed by the myth of the environment. They have also dropped the argument that because of repression between migrant groups, was an independent impact when it comes itself. They have done no first case analysis in relation to the tax which is the reason why they can't get this framework argument. The framework arguments you have dropped the analysis of the world evidence coming out of the 2AC. The world evidence explicitly says that we cannot have the political strategy without concentration within the status quo. It says that Asian Americans are excluded from the political right now, which means that we cannot play the game of the state without doing it. He says that we can get guns from anywhere, which is the reason we cannot do that unless we have a concentration, which is the reason why the permutation should be able to solve this argument better. Even if it's not permutation, why see fundamental prerequisite to this argument. Now, all of our concepts, we make this argument too because arguments like concentration and prerequisite political activism. Yes, we say that we can change the world, but this is the reason why we meet this argument. Is the reason why this argument links to the other K. He tried to get out of this theory violation in the negative block. He said he has done absolutely nothing for this. The piece of data evidence says that we need to smash the state, we need to engage the state. The piece of practical evidence says that we need to actually change the political. They are not an argument. This is functionally a role-playing good argument about we have to really understand the political. Brad had made it explicitly clear that we cannot think that things will get better. He says that we cannot have these blueprints. He says that Cali Spice's decision does not even make sense. He needs to be make sense either because he says that we need to recognize that indigenous people do it. But we need to recognize indigenous people before we take action. So recognize and if we recognize the guilt before we take action, that means that we're still going to take action for the indigenous people, which is the reason why it links to the argument. Also, conditionality in debate is the same thing as unconditionally resisting settlerism. Because status quo is a logical option. Is the first argument. It's the first thing he told me. If status quo is always a logical argument, that means that you can just go for the best of status quo instead of resisting colonialism. This was for classification of status quo. You have to have the terminal impact to the contradiction argument, which is white supremacy. Now I can have the previous guy this makes it very clear, saying that contradiction is logical white supremacy. It's the slave master stealing the slave, using these contradictions to universally oppressing minorities, which is the reason why their performance ban should be rejected in the status quo. This precedes all other arguments because it proves why they're bad and it proves why this presentation is bad. They cannot win presumption when this is a reason to reject it. Not going to Settlerism arguments, not going to Settlerism argument. His overview arguments, we are not the innocent of Constitution. This makes zero sense because we explicitly concede that modern minorities can't oppress in the status quo, which is the reason why the Constitution arguments don't link to the status quo. The link terms case arguments don't even make sense either because there's functionally no link to the case. Constant erasing in itself is not bad because we are a type of conservation that don't assume that evidence. We're a type of conservation that takes it complicity and given by the identity with the myth of the modern, which is the reason why it does that. All the arguments about military bases and the global system of contradiction. The myth of the modern drives this argument too because the reason why the United States went over to Asia was because they think that Asians are good to exploit. They think that South Korea is a good partner because they are made up of all these minorities. But guess what? When they actually go there, when they subject South Koreans to forever foreigner, this is the act we ran on the military bases topic, which is the reason why it doesn't allow the piece of evidence. Now the second link argues about settler privilege and complicity. First of all, the permutation will be to solve these arguments too because the permutation we have settler privilege and complicity. Even though we're not a recognition of settler privilege, we are a recognition of a type of privilege coming from the YC. He says that we cannot make the state ethical. Even though we cannot make the state ethical, we can still make it better for Asian Americans within the ethical. We can change our own world. We're not trying to change the institution, which is the intention of this constellation called. Next presumption arguments makes no sense because we are active for change. If David and I decide to do the way we do actually any sort of change, that means that there is no presumption argument because it proves our message has great change right now. The view from Robert arguments is not linked to us because we are Asian Americans. We are the ones making these changes. We are not trying to prescribe this identity to other people. He has a formula that to perform a contradiction, but he says that his alternative just to recognize guilt. Recognizing guilt and not doing anything is the logical white supremacy supremacy, saying that, oh, I'm going to feel bad about this because I'm actually not going to change this. We actually need to be indigenous people. These are the excuses always put up by white supremacists when this act would know to avoid action, which is the reason why they alter themselves anything. Now, if they do take an action that means that they're doing it for the indigenous people, it should be bad. You should introduce the indigenous people and their voices win this debate, which is reading the song in front of this article, the piece of all evidence and the piece of evidence explicitly says that Constitution is a different form. They assume that we're trying to put Constitution onto other people, which we're not doing with this article. We're just doing it for ourselves, which is the reason it doesn't link the permutation. Different statutes with different people should favor permutation. He says that there's integration this side, footnote this side. Both of these are do not link to permutation, which is different statutes with different features. This is just that our methods can coexist, not that we should do either both at the same time. It does not prove our methods right, which is the reason why we're not trying to drive it all to total. We're just saying that the foreign Constitution God. I finally said the disconnected objection theory, this and the status quo. This is the reason why you need to actually go to people. You need to actually talk to indigenous people before you can solve performatively, because you have dropped out of the role of battle, which is that you must to vote for the team who best methodologically and performatively liberates on press. Even if they might have a good methodology, they sure as hell don't solve it performatively when you don't introduce an individual voice with a status quo. To try that argument are the logical white supremacy. You cannot just say that you recognize your own guilt and claim these global things, which is the reason why it doesn't turn case, because they did not turn the case performatively in the debate space. It doesn't spur all type of will because Asian conservation can lead to our status quo, which is the reason why it doesn't work. The contradictions argument should be something that precedes, because we either have a root quit or they preside something. The clean cards about settlers as similar to dominant capital structure, which we are not. We don't link to this. The only link that we link to, they link to too.
Y'all have 514.
Was there a card for this white supremacy?
Knock you out my freezer.
going to do the page with the conditionality contradiction stuff first, then the critique. The contradictions argument, there are a couple of distinctions that we made that mean we're not the kind of contradiction that they criticize. The theory argument was simply that when change happens, it needs to have a specific strategy for changing the material allocation of resources instead of simply pointing out that bad things. The alternative is not do nothing. It's that we can take action only after we've only understood our complicities in Settlerism, which still allows us to have blueprints for changing material resources, but that should not assume that we know everything about these past assertion about their identity proof that we should have presented their specific plan of action. One, you see, because they don't, because they do know what needs to happen, but two white guys from Glenbrook South do not action good is not contradiction with recognized privilege before taking action. The argument in the one is he was unnecessarily offensive is just a bunch of solvency arguments about the way that activism functions. The only way that the contradictions argument can function is if they cross-apply as solvency arguments. They've also conceded that the punishment for this argument should not be voting negative. You should reject the alternative in the debate space, but we can still go for all of the other arguments. The conditionality arguments about Senator Barnes saying the fact that I'm going for the alternative means that I don't link to any of these things. It's not a strategy of whiteness. Also, kicking the alternative is also not whiteness. We would still go for the links to the plan and all of our presumption arguments, which are still about the indigenous population. Conditionality in the debate space, not the tuck and yank piece of evidence. There's a distinction between the two. Framing issues they fail to come to terms with. Much of this is going to come down to what we can achieve within the academic space. I asked him what is he cross-sects what the F does to change our relationships, specifically yours, Ben, to the world. He said nothing. That's the point. He said that they reject the idea of the model minority. The two will undoubtedly be arguments about why we need to fight the oppression of Asian Americans, but the means through which we fight, we do that is important. Only we have provided a strategy for recognizing privilege and how we respond to that privilege. Maintaining our deep sense of guilt allows us to rethink our relationship to the people we oppress in the first place. They are hypotheticals about taking action or absurd. This is debate. The question is how we as academics can change or can challenge our settler mentality. First is the ballot. You as a white male cannot affirm the process of conscientization without recognizing your role in the colonization process. The one on which we stand cannot be made ethical. The alternative is a recognition of that. Instead of analyzing the particular tools for white supremacy, we need to understand the material logical that allows white supremacy to manifest itself. They've conceded by chessboard analogy. They focus on eliminating a single piece while we try to destroy the board itself. There's no way that we can change anything. The best thing that we can do is maintain our own guilt and a sense of uncomfortableness. We control the arguments about militarization and turning the critique. We control the internal war, genocide, imperial expropriation exists as an extension of the sovereign domain. Ku's analysis was only analysis of our relationship with Asia. Our card is a piece of evidence about analysis of our foreign policy as a whole. We use foreign policy to define the domestication of the other works in order to establish a political and territorial sovereignty for the United States. The construction of the domestic space as a sovereign power allows us to delineate between us and an external other, which allows racism to exist in the first place. He says that they can make things better for the Asian Americans. That's exactly the point. The idea for reforms for other racialized minorities before we recognize our own complicity in the colonial domination of the indigenous people is the reason why the conscientization of the affirmative is unproductive. And a link to the affirmative, any link to the affirmative, they said to the permutation. The next argument is that they aren't the view from nowhere. They have conceded our analysis of the Yancey piece of evidence, which is a 2AC card. Who conceded this? The Yancey piece of evidence says that you have to account for your own privilege, quote, as a positive action that proves our all solvency and proves that the act does nothing productive because they don't recognize their own privilege within the debate space. The Yancey piece of evidence says that these things need to be recognized and pointed out. We need to recognize our complicity in the domination of the colonial process in order to make productive change. Only the alternative allows us to do that because it maintains a sense of guilt and allows us to take action within our means. The permutation doesn't solve anything. There are a couple dissays to the permutation. First, any link is a dissay. If I win my conscientization arguments about them only creating a narrative of progress for the Asian Americans without recognizing their complicity in the domination of the indigenous people, proves the permutation can't solve also the ethic of incommensurability. The one is the tuck and yank piece of evidence proves the perm is incompatible. It's an attempt to reconcile the settler mentality, but the ethic of incommensurability is the recognition that we cannot compare the suffering. They've conceded that the permutation is a link or alternative cannot be grafted onto the one C despite its critical anti-racism and kills the very possibility of decolonization because it recenters whiteness and resettles the theory. It extends the innocence of the settler. That's our second tuck and yank piece of evidence. The next argument that he makes is that we need to go to indigenous people and we don't solve a performance. We can't go to indigenous people. That's exactly the point. The only thing that we can do is recognize our own privilege, recognize our complicity in the domination of these peoples and feel a sense of deep uncomfortableness and guilt to reorient our relationship to the way we oppress different peoples. The fact that we can't access their forms forms of knowledge production is exactly the reason why we shouldn't try to perpetuate that in the debates. Basically, last arguments that are tried framing is ridiculous. He has conceded the second piece of the Churchill piece of evidence, which isn't the card that he's talking about, that says that the alternative resolves all of the case arguments. The success of the native people spills over. A recognition of indigenous sovereignty necessitates a diminishment of U.S. material power and paves the way for the realization of other agenda for anti-imperialism and racial liberation. Turns the case arguments only go one way. The F can't solve the K because the F still represents an inherently oppressive situation, and their realization is contingent upon an ongoing occupation of native North America without consenting of indigenous people there. All of their root cause arguments in Asian Americans come first argument fundamentally misunderstand the way that history functions. We came to America and colonized the land of the indigenous people before we were able to create this idea of an external other.
68. What if I get a drink? Yeah, he has like this blog out of nowhere. Alright, where are we going?
Case, framework, critique.
Good.
Ready? You will vote F because we suffer the psychological violence of Asian Americans. We are always and always invincible, so swept on the run because our prejudice not seen as good enough. It manifests itself in the welfare policy or college policy where we are too good to gain the help. We talk for the colonization of Asia because the business what looks at makes Asia looks attractive. Capitalist structure fluid to Asia to get the best workers because they are seen as hardware. They colonize the resources, integrating modern minority, interrogate the coloniality of Asia, Asian America. They have not made any specific reason why the alternative table to solve a case do not grant that you have continued the entirety could go through the framework argument. I'm just extending this argument because it's a reason why they have no reason to reject the alternative. They see that settlers must be unconditionally affirmed, but the evidence they read on the theory argument proves that they don't do that. The piece of law evidence says that problems that plague contemporary African Americans are political life. This proves that they are trying to alleviate problems for African Americans in political life. This was also a pragmatism good argument. The block explicitly said that any mention of pragmatism making things better is a bad thing. Reading this argument has one implication. One, that it means that they link to their only link they have extended. The only student or link that argument was the narrative of the Asian American progress. The theory argument was justified for the black progress. They don't have the ethical incommensurability by introducing this theory argument. Two, they are racist and they should lose. Not a increasing argument. Evidence that logical contradictions sustains the logical racism. Also, this is a double turn. Either the alternative does not do anything and they just recognize their guilt and they link to this criticism, which means that they are not progressive, or they actually do something for the indigenous. They try to prescribe something on the indigenous, and they are seen as they are not accepting the white guilt and just perpetuate the coloniality against the indigenous by prescribing methods for them. Now, go on to the critique. First, I'm going to start with the overview. Is that they did not extend a link other than that there's a narrative of Asian American progress, which they link to on itself line by line. First, they said that we have to achieve that the ballot cannot be a firm conscientization. Ben, your ballot makes no sense. You just acknowledge your privilege and vote negative. I'm pretty sure that you have already done that, and now take a step and affirm a good methodology to break down Asian oppression. Yeah, we know that you think colonialization is bad, but what do you do about it? You can't just say that we acknowledge our guilt and do anything, because the alternative does not do anything. The checkboard analogy does not make sense because you did not get rid of the checkboard by acknowledging your own guilt. This is where the authors are. Conscientization is a intellectual academic self-orientation where I name my work and vote epistemology throughout this debate. That's how I get my epistemology to know that colonization is a bad thing, not just by saying that it's a bad thing and not taking a step to actively doing you, the Asians, out of the chessboard, because they are always oppressing colonization, taking these universal generalizations won't do anything. You say that the foreign policy kills everyone, and that only colonialization is able to solve. Ben, you should be very skeptical about how just recognizing your Glenbrook South's guild is able to stop all of colonization in Asian America. I'll get to the root cause debate later. Also, they extend this link that report for racial minorities bad because conscientization is colonial. I'll do the answer right here. Their link evidence in the concept of justice theorizing about coloniality. This does not assume that conscientization is the epistemological growth that I gain as an Asian American. Their own Connie evidence says that assimilating to dominant forward, aka the model minorities of the world, perpetuate Settlerism. Conscientization means that we aren't settling and we refuse to become tools of white supremacy. There are progressive links. Make no sense because conscientization is a constant clarification. There's no progress for the epistemological growth and taking an active step to change the world. Also, there second off case where we must have a progressive area. It also links to the narrative of progressive change because we always seem like we have a problem. Yes, your arguments. Yes, you need to acknowledge your privilege, but you can't just assume a universal ethic that you're acknowledging your privilege somehow resolves all the freaking settlerism in the world. This is armchair philosophy who assumes that he knows everything that for the indigenous war just by acknowledge your white privilege and saying you're guilty is a form of complicity, because then white people can just be like, yeah, I'm a part of a colonial system and I don't have to do anything about it. I can just being guilty and just let colonialities continue and not solve anything about it. This is the logic of strategic colonialism, where people are like, yeah, we done some messed up thing in the past, but I'm not gonna do anything about it and just pretend like it's all the same. Yeah, you may still stay guilty, but you're still complicit with the settler mentality and means the negative alternative does not do anything for it and means that the answer card links to you. Also, there's no link to the affirmative to these arguments because all cards and ample cards I read into to see that conscientization does not reject colonial and indigenous knowledge. This means that the whole entire critique is based on the link of mission and the permutation you're able to solve permutation. First, the narrative progress with the answer of it links to the critique because as soon as you prescribe a solution, you believe that you are doing an inconventional ability and grafting does not make sense. And because of the permutation, with the permutation different strategy for different people, it means that we can bridge together our methodology, that we can coexist, not that we're grafting your methodology, saying that you should do a process of conscientization. Conscientization does not mean it's not mutually exclusive with you for your privilege. Also, that's all for the colonization of America, and it's all for the root cause debate. It doesn't make sense because most minorities are one to settlerism, but Koreans views the United States as the land of milk and honey. That's exactly why we came to white. Exactly as settlerism. The act is not that of oppressing the church evidence does not solve for the myth of the model.
Yeah, they draw the role about methodological.
They draw the roles about whose best methodology and performance to liberate oppressed with their performance was bad because they directly linked to their own link and their methodology does not exist.
Good debate.